Welcome to the Noble Father podcast. I am your host, Theophilus Strong. Today is October the 23rd of 2023. And a good reminder, there's never going to be a day like today again, ever again. And so your children also will never be this age ever again. And so be present. Be present. That is not the entire episode. There's a... Man, I this life it's a trip, it's a journey. And I wanted to shout out one of my brothers, Canadian brothers in the Noble Father group. There aren't a lot of them in our group. I mean Canadians. But this one in particular is one that I definitely need to shout out. I realized after I recorded last week's episode that I didn't shout out this brother in particular, and that was a mistake on my part because he's played a phenomenal role in my own development and also in the support that he's given to the Noble Father work. His name is Perry Tomlinson, and he is definitely a man I would jump on a grenade for. I would take a bullet for, and I wanted to shout out him because there have been multiple points in my journey where it's been difficult. And he's always been there. And we have a unique relationship. He's one of the fathers that I got to meet in person. He stayed with us for a bit, welcomed him into our family. And my kids very much enjoyed that time spent with him. And if you don't know Perry, Perry has undergone a very arduous and complex journey through his own addiction and his own recovery. And what you learn from, and I've done life with Perry for well over a year now, of like seeing how he lives, and it makes me think that we're all in need of a recovery journey, like the way Perry lives his. So many things in life are incredibly complex, and it's not simple. It's not just black and white, and even navigating relationships, or navigating career changes, or navigating parent-child relationships, and navigating estranged partner relationships. There's so many things in life that requires us to take a deeper look, and when I think of that, I think of Perry because he's so good at being present and staying present to those circumstances in life. And something that I like to live by in my own life is like, where's your heart at? And Perry always asks, where is his heart at in everything that he does? And so if you haven't already, go and check out his YouTube channel called Sober Recon, where he talks about his own recovery journey. Right now, he's taken a bit of a hiatus right now, as he's navigating some life situations. But he's making his way through a 30-day cold dip, a cold plunging challenge that he did that he challenged himself on. And I believe he's about 23 days in today. And I know by now he's already completed his 23rd day. And so he's shown up, in life so amazingly. And when I think of a noble father, I think of Perry Tomlinson. And so, Perry, I know you're going to listen to this episode. And I just want to say how much I appreciate you, especially for the conversation this morning. This weekend, and that's going to, tie into, my little update for the week, for the week. This past weekend, it was a very busy one for us. My kids had a Pro D Day, which is a professional development day, which teachers take, and kids don't go to school. And I thought it'd be a great idea to go and take the kids out. But at the same time, there's a kid that I have had the privilege of being friends with, and he told me that he was going to have a volleyball tournament out in a city that's about an hour away from us, east of us here. And I thought I'd go check it out, go cheer him on, and show him some support. I'm a sports guy. I like watching sports. I know a variety of sports, and so I thought I'd take the kids out. My kids have had relationships with this friend of ours before, and it was just good to show him some support. And so we headed out that way, and yeah, we got to take part and watch two of his games. My kids obviously didn't really couldn't really sit still for a majority of it. The first game they kind of watched like halfway, and they already kind of didn't enjoy it anymore, and we're starting to get antsy and stuff. But yeah, we got to spend some time with him, and then I went to go see a friend out that way who have kids about the same age as my kids. Overall, it was just a really busy weekend, man. It was filled with stuff, right? And then that Saturday, I had a birthday party in the morning, and then, I had to go to, take my son to swimming, and then I had to go back to the birthday party, and then, went to go see some friends that night, and then Sundays are always busy for us, right? Went to IKEA after church or whatever. It was crazy because, I'm always very thoughtful of the Noble Father group, and I'm always thinking about things to do and what to value to give and provide for the community, and what to talk about on the podcast. And it was a struggle, this morning, thinking about what to talk about on this podcast. And there's so much going on. I didn't think about the Noble Father work this weekend, and I felt kind of guilty, and also, like, I have so many things that I need to so many questions I need to answer, and so many things I need to get moving on for the Noble Father ecosystem. I didn't feel any kind of motivation going into Monday as I usually do, right? Mondays were kind of my podcast release days, and even then I didn't really have any of that kind of motivation like I normally do. And I told, Perry, I kind of felt like I lost my mojo, and man, like he shot it down. He was just like, dude, like, you were present with your family. Like, that is part of the journey. That is part of the Noble Father work. Like, you don't overlook the fact that you got to be present with your family, and you, by not thinking about the Noble Father work and not being present in the group chats that you got going on, and all the reels that you need to get out or whatever, that you were present doing the work. Work-life balance is this, man, it's just this journey. When I think about entrepreneurial success, it's very easy to think that you are not a success because you didn't hit a certain, 6-figure, 7-figure dollar mark, or you didn't have a certain amount of reach. It's very easy for me sometimes to look at my podcast episodes and all the statistics along with it, and think, man, like I've broken, there's a particular episode that I got out that had like 300 and almost 380 listens. And then it, trickles down to like in the hundreds, and my average now is probably like in the 20s and 30s and 40s, and it's very easy to look at those statistics and think, man, you haven't made any progress. Like, you're not successful as an entrepreneur, and you're struggling with monetization, and you have all these struggles, and people, and again, also another thing is, like, easy for me to think of, like, you started this journey March of last year, and since that time, there's other podcasts that have started, other people have started, and they've monetized, and they've hit it off, like they've hit a grand slam first at bat, and I've I wouldn't say struck out, but I've been hitting here and there some good hits. Would I say I've hit it out of the ballpark? Depends on who you ask, right? It's very easy for me to think of it as not being enough. But no, there are good things. There are good things, as I'm sitting here thinking about it, is it worth it for me, right? Like I said before, like, is it worth it for you? Would you be willing to do the work if you knew that one person walked away with their lives changed forever? And that has happened already. I'm lucky. I'm blessed to be able to have seen that come to fruition. I've been able to witness somebody changing their lives, and even the meetups. Sometimes it's like, Lord, like, please take this from me. Like, help me be unattached, and that work doing the meetups is something that, fathers come every single week and they leave less burden for their life, and that's a result that I don't get to see, and statistics and metadata that I don't get to analyze, and it's what they say about fear is false evidence appearing real, and so or maybe even unseen evidence appearing real. There's evidence that I don't take into account for my own success, and being an entrepreneur is one of those difficulties, especially doing the work that I'm doing, and monetizing in a different way, prioritizing purpose and prioritizing a good cause over profits, is something that's very counter to this world. Interestingly, this Sunday, my pastor was doing a sermon, and he gave us this really practical, how do I say this? He ended it by giving us what it means to be training under God's training program for life. So, how to do life according to God, and this is the training program for it. And because we're making our way through 2 Samuel, which is the story of King David, or David, and how he became king, and how David is called a man after God's own heart, and how David will always wait on the Lord and seek his timing, seek his wisdom, and wait upon him. David, as you probably know, won amazing amounts of victories growing up, including fighting Goliath and defeating him. There are multiple victories that he had thereafter that all came from God's hand and him waiting upon God. And so, I'll just give you the training program. It's something that, I can learn from anything. I can learn from anybody. And so this greatly helped me, and hopefully this helps you. And if you're not on any kind of a spiritual journey, or you don't have, that religious side of you, I'm sure you could still walk away with something from this, because, God loves his children. And when I say children, I don't mean those who have a relationship with him or identify as a son of God or a daughter of God. I believe you are already a son and a daughter of God. You are created by him, and he thought of you before you were even in creation. And so in the Bible it says, God feeds even the birds of the field, right? Like he takes care of the creatures on this planet. Maintaining that maintains good health for the planet, and maintaining good health for the planet provides for us as well. And that's just how God intended life to be. And so he provides for you the way that he provides for even those that have a relationship with him. It's for everybody. So God's training program, 4 steps, 4 things to understand, 4 revelations to understand about what God's training program for life looks like, and a relationship with him, obviously, right? So God's training program, revelations about life and how life is done, they're not explained to the student in real time. So, take this podcast for an example. I prayed before I started, asking Lord, hey, what do you want me to talk about today? What is the topic that you have? I don't always get an answer, and it never comes in real time. It's amazing, because I feel like as I hit the record button, and it's really hard sometimes for me to hit the record button and just go, it seems like it flows out of me. It just comes out of me, and God's like, guiding me. Like if you're paying attention, I already see kind of connection points between how I started this episode and what I'm talking about right now. So it's not explained in real time, and as I flow, God is speaking through me. I consider myself a mouthpiece, and God is the one giving me the wisdom and the words to speak, to you now through this podcast. Number two is that it goes on for a lifetime. This is a thing that it's a race that is never done. It'll never completely finish. And almost as if when you feel like you got it, you don't get it. You don't. It's hard to grasp. It's like grasping oil. You're never going to get it. And I think when I think of that, it's like, we're dependent on God. If we ever get to a point of not being dependent on God, we become perfect. And that's just not the way life is meant to be. And we would never need God after that point. And so this is a degree that you'll never finally finish. It'll always have new courses for you to take, which leads into the second point, which is it involves many courses, even if you pass. So you pass, Faith 101. You're going to have Faith 111. You're going to have Faith 211. You're going to have, there's infinite courses that you can take on this, and you'll never fully complete the education. You'll never fully complete God's training program. And the last point is it's necessary for a person to handle prosperity, which is what you need is maturity to handle prosperity. And don't get wrong about prosperity. My pastors are not ones like Joel Osteen that preach about prosperity or whatnot. And but like for us to handle more, so let's just say more is the definition of prosperity. To fully handle prosperity or more, maturity is needed. God will not give us anything that we can't handle, right? That the context of that, the verse in the Bible that says, God will not give us more than we can handle, is preceded by sin, talking about how temptations sometimes will come and trials will come, but God will not give us anything more than we can handle. But on the other side of things, of like prosperity, of like the wisdom of the kingdom of heaven, the secrets of the kingdom of heaven will not be too much. It won't be a jawbreaker that'll, wreck your mouth or wreck your jaw and, give you TMJ or whatever. It's going to be palatable for you. God is going to give it to you in a way that is digestible for you, that is going to be applicable for you, that is going to be easy for you to digest, but at the same time also enough for you to take and grow with, right? What's the analogy that, you walk away from God and you try to run as far as you can, as fast as you can away from him. And as soon as you turn around, he's right there. Or actually the other analogy that I get from my pastor, Jason, when we have conversations is like, what was the last thing God told you to do? And go and do that. If you didn't hear anything, go continue doing what was the last thing he told you to do. So, whenever I'm walking, there's a mile marker and, God said, create the podcast. And so I was obedient, created the podcast. And then, as you walk along, you're like, hey, why are things not working out? And why are things not happening? And then you look back and Jesus is still standing. God is still standing by the mile marker being like, I didn't give you additional instructions yet. You just kept walking and I was here all along. I'm still here waiting for you to be obedient and just continue doing that. Because so often we get, antsy, or we want to do stuff and you got ideas that you want to unfold. And maybe that's the lesson for me this week is of like all these ideas and things that I have, I've taken and run with it. But I feel so empty, getting a feeling of being empty inside because I've walked away from seeking what God wants for this podcast, for this community, for this ecosystem. And I've just taken it and run away with it and feeling very convicted in the heart of like turning back and looking and seeing God was at the previous marker. This is something that is being revealed to me right now as I speak. I'm being convicted of this right now of like, Theo, when was the last time you sought what God wanted for the community and not what you thought or what the other guys thought about the community? It's not an easy conversation to have. And the thing about conviction is it's a different kind of feeling than guilt. I definitely don't feel guilt. I'm certainly feeling conviction right now in thinking about the podcast and about the community and about the ecosystem. There's a lot of things that I came back from China and had like crazy amounts of ideas and things that I wanted to roll out. You know, the conviction to me is, where was God in that? Did I invite God into that conversation? You know, this is a community and a podcast of value, of wanting to provide value, and value is good. But if I go somewhere without God, that becomes the wrong destination. Even if God intended for me to be at that place, that becomes the wrong destination. And this is my lesson, I think, for the week. Of like, have you slowed down to think about what God wants for the fathers in the group, for me as an individual, as a father myself, as a noble father myself, as an entrepreneur, as a husband, as a friend? Have I considered what God wants in all of those domains? And have I waited patiently, for him? One of the notes I took from the sermon is, waiting on the Lord is not doing nothing. Waiting on the Lord is not doing nothing. We need to fix our eyes on Jesus. And that's something that maybe, I haven't, I haven't waited upon the Lord for direction. I haven't been patient for God's timing. And one of the questions that I wrote down from yesterday too is, whose kingdom am I building here? There's only two answers possible for that question. Am I building my own kingdom here in the Noble Father work? Am I doing all these things for my own kingdom, or am I doing this for God's kingdom? And that's a heart of conviction for me. That's what I'm feeling right now, and this is a question that I need to answer, because in trying it my own way, where has that gotten me? Let's be honest. Let's just use this last week as an example. Yes, I was present with my family over the weekend, but also feeling this immense sense of emptiness when I try to go and do it myself. Of course, I won't feel fulfilled doing it because I've gone without him. And it was never intended. Maybe it wasn't intended for me to have all these ideas and push it out there. When I go by myself, man, this is the normal feeling. And this isn't the first time I've experienced something like this. Again, one of those courses that I've taken in the past and now circling back to again. It's interesting, he said also, would you rather be the lowest in the kingdom of God than the highest in the kingdom of man? And, that goes back to the entrepreneur, standard, right? The entrepreneur standard of like, do you consider yourself, would you rather be the highest by the world standard of an entrepreneur, or the lowest in God's? And that's a question for me to answer. And maybe that's a question I pose to you as well. Maybe you've been trying to do this all your way, and nothing seems to be clicking, nothing seems to be working, and you're tired, and you're close to giving up. And one of the notes that I took for the Noble Father meetup is, inputs and outputs. And you'll hear me iterate this over and over again. Right? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. Maybe you've taken this lesson before in life, right? You've tried it so many different ways. You've done it so many different ways. You've pursued so many shiny things, and so many different ways of doing it, so many different suggestions and ideas from other people. And yet you find yourself in the same place, in the same position. Yet when you look back on it, and I highly encourage you to do that, is to look back on your journey and think, what did you really change? Right? Were you trying to do it with your own ability? Were you doing it with your own ability? I dare you, in fact, I dare you to challenge and ask God, hey, Lord, even if you don't have a relationship, I dare you, actually. I dare you to ask him, Lord, show me what it's like to live your way. Or, Lord, like Jesus, take the wheel, like the comments, the saying or the song or whatever. Lord, take the wheel. Show me what it's like to live with your leading. Guide me, show me. Guide my steps and show me how you want me to live. And see where that takes you. Because this is definitely what I'm walking away with today for myself. Amazing that as I'm sharing and flowing these episodes, that I'm finding conviction in the heart and that this is something that I need to figure out for myself. And if you ever need somebody to feedback off of this, and get somebody to reflect back this journey, please reach out to me. I'd love to be a friend. I'd love to hold the space for you. That's really where I like to, come to life. I really like to help people deepen their understanding. And it's funny because as I'm speaking, I'm almost as if I'm coaching myself and I'm digging deeper. I'm pulling on a thread, and it's unraveling more for myself. If you ever need that space, please reach out to me. I'd love to, because it's not just for you, it's also for me, which is crazy. This podcast is not just for you and for the listeners and for the fathers out there, but it's also for me. You'll always hear me say I'm an imperfect individual, and I am not a perfect person. I'm not a perfect follower of God. I'm not a perfect son. I am imperfect, but in my imperfection, God is perfect, and he reveals himself. Very real. Never in the timing that we want, but it's always when you really, really need it, God shows up. And so I'm trusting this to him. I'm trusting this whole journey to him. The noble Father, I'm recommitting myself right now. As I'm sharing this on the podcast, I'm recommitting this podcast. I'm recommitting this community. I'm recommitting this ecosystem to God, because he has what's best for us. And it's only through my own maturity that I will have prosperity, and only in his timing will I have that prosperity. Will I have the foundation to take on more responsibility in his kingdom. And so that's really all I wanted to share today. I hope that this challenge finds you well, that you take it to heart and consider it. And the God that I know does not want to harm his children. God wants to love and wants to grow his children. He wants to give the best to his children. But the choice is yours. This all-powerful God who's omniscient and omnipresent and all-seeing cares about you and cares about your freedom and your decision and your choice and your control and your right to make that decision for yourself. If you find him knocking at your door, don't resist. Open the door. Open the door. This life, like I said, is a trip. At the beginning of the episode, life is a trip. And that might just be the episode title. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for allowing me to share vulnerably about myself and my own journey. I've never wanted this podcast to be a facade or an illusion that I have it all together. I definitely don't have it all together. But the journey and the beautiful thing about the word noble Father, the word noble, is that God said that about me after all my imperfect actions and decisions and the results that I gave myself, the lowest points, the crap that I was sitting in, and all that, all the things that I look back on with considerable amounts of regret. God has turned that into what this is now and what I'm able to do here on the podcast. And I hope that encourages you. no matter where you are, no matter what you're going through, however low you are in life right now, just know that God is so powerful that he can use it for a purpose one day. And a revelation, something that came out of my mouth just the other day to somebody, is that God is so powerful that he is willing to let Satan try. God is so powerful that he is willing to let Satan try to steal away or to destroy and to manipulate and do all these things. God is so powerful that he lets it happen. He lets him do it. And yet we know what the result is going to be. It is a foregone conclusion. And that is my encouragement to you as well, is that know that God he's watching, and everything that is happening is within his control, and he knows what's going on. And there's going to come a time where he comes back. And I want you to know that there is urgency in making that decision to open the door whenever he's knocking. There is urgency. Don't wait too long. Sitting on the fence is also a decision. What you'll find out is that the devil owns the fence as well. Not making a decision is a decision. And so if you have any questions about that, you have any concerns about what that looks like for you, please reach out. I'd love to answer some of your questions. I may not have all the answers myself. I am still on this journey, and I'm learning and growing. And so, but I will guarantee you is that if you reach out, I will advocate for you. I will be an ally for you, and I will do my best to help you find the answers that you are looking for. Because I love you. I do my best to love the way Jesus has loved me. And I just want to thank you for being on that journey with me. Thank you again for tuning into the podcast. If you're looking for the video form of this, you will find it on YouTube. Also, if you're able to support this podcast and this community, please head on over to Patreon and consider subscribing to the tiers. This is everything I do for work. This is everything I'm passionate about. Every single support helps me reach out to more fathers. It helps me to put out more value. And that in itself is where I know God was last standing at the mile marker and encouraging me to do. And so I'm going to continue to show up doing what it is that I said I'm going to do, speaking into the life of fathers boldly and vulnerably. And I just want to say how much I appreciate you all and your support, even if it isn't financial, even if it isn't verbally expressed to me. I want you to know that I feel supported on this journey, and I want to thank you. And so I hope you guys have a wonderful week. And if you're able to, if you're also, and this is the last thing, and I'm sorry, I keep, digressing. If you're able to, and you're listening to this on, Apple Podcast, please help me and go there and leave a review and also rate the podcast. If you're on Spotify, please follow. Please help me share and spread this. That the world of fatherhood is so dark, and in this world where things are getting worse, fathers are taking the brunt of it. And so thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Take care, and bye for now.